Arab and Muslim leaders have called for a review of relations with Israel after emergency talks in Doha following last week's deadly Israeli strike on Hamas officials in Qatar. Now, the summit has issued a joint statement urging all states to take legal and effective measures to stop Israel's actions against the Palestinian people. This includes reviewing diplomatic and economic relations with Israel and initiating legal proceedings against it. US President Donald Trump has insisted that Israel will not strike Qatar again. His comments come after the deadly attack last week, which targeted Hamas members in Doha. Now, speaking from the Oval Office, Trump has stated that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would refrain from any further action after he failed to rule out more strikes during talks with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Heavy bombardment continues in Gaza City as Israeli strikes intensify. Gaza's civil defense has stated that casualties are rising rapidly with no sign of assault easing. Now, this escalation comes as the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio voiced strong support for Israel's offensive in the Gaza enclave. US President Trump has stated that the American military has struck a suspected Venezuelan drug cartel vessel in international waters. 3 men have been killed in this attack, which is the second such operation against suspected drug traffickers in recent weeks. Washington and Beijing have reached a framework agreement to shift control of the short video app TikTok to the United States, and as per officials, the deal will be confirmed in a call on Friday between Presidents Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. India and the United States of America will hold high-level trade talks in New Delhi on Tuesday. This meeting comes after US President Donald Trump had signaled optimism that a deal could be finalized. This also follows Trump's imposition of additional tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. Both sides hope to reach a breakthrough, with US Representative Brendan Lynch leading the talks and Indian negotiator Rajesh Agarwal representing New Delhi. British fighter jets will join NATO allies in defending Poland's airspace after a Russian drone incursion last week. Now, as per reports, UK's RAF Typhoon jets will conduct air defense missions alongside allies from Denmark, Germany and France. This comes as tensions have risen across Europe since Poland accused Russia of incursion. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has defended his decision to sack Peter Mandelson over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. Starmer has stated that he would have never appointed Mandelson as ambassador to Washington had he known of the extent of those ties. The British Prime Minister is now under growing pressure, with other ministers questioning his judgment and handling of this situation. All right, viewers, those were the headlines and our top focus. Now, in a written statement, Gulf leaders have announced that the Gulf Cooperation Council's joint defense body will meet in Doha and call for measures to activate the bloc's joint defense mechanism. Now, the joint statement has also called for a review of Arab countries' ties with Israel. Now, in the closing press conference, the GCC has stated that the US should use their influence to rein in Israel. Listen in.
We also expect our strategic partners in the United States to use their influence on Israel in order for it to stop this behavior. We really do expect that. They have leverage and influence on Israel, and it's about time that this leverage and influence to be used.
During the emergency meet, various Arab leaders have condemned the Israeli strikes on Qatar and have called for cutting ties with Israel. Listen in.
ولشعب إسرائيل أقول إن ما يجري حاليا يقوض مستقبل السلام ويهدد أمنكم وأمن جميع شعوب المنطقة ويضع العراقيل أمام أي فرص أي اتفاقيات سلام جديدة بل ويجهد اتفاقات السلام القائمة مع دول المنطقة وحينها ستكون العواقب وخيمة وذلك بعودة المنطقة إلى أجواء الصراع وضياع ما تحقق من جهود تاريخية لبناء السلام ومكاسب تحققت من ورائه، وهو ثمن سندفعه جميعا بلا استثناء. فلا تسمحوا بأن تذهب جهود أسلافنا من أجل السلام سدى ويكون الندم حينها bila جدوى.
Diplomatik gayretlerimizi İsrail'e yaptırım uygulamalarının artması için yoğunlaştırmalı, İsrailli yetkililerin adalet önünde hesap vermeleri için uluslararası hukuk mekanizmaları kullanılmalıdır.
باید متجاوز را منزوی کنیم. تسلیحات و تأمینات مالی او را قطع و رهبرانشان را در دادگاه‌های عدالت پاسخگو نماییم. فردا می‌تواند نوبت هر یک از پایتخت‌های عربی و اسلامی باشد. این جانب انتخاب روشن است. باید با هم متحد شویم.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has met Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on the sidelines of the summit in Doha. During the meeting, Erdogan has stated that the ever-expanding Israeli war on the ground is unacceptable and that Turkey would steadfastly pursue its efforts to secure an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and to ensure the delivery of humanitarian aid. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Wael Awad, Middle East Affairs expert. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Arab countries now showcasing solidarity, condemning the Israeli strikes that have taken place in Doha in a united, unanimous voice. What do you think now that the Arab nations have come out and penned down a written statement highlighting that there will be diplomatic as well as legal consequences for Israel? What do you think will be the impact on the Abraham Accords?
Well, I think this unprecedented attack by Israel on a friendly nations which have a good relation with Israel and the United States partner, and with the U.S. having the largest military base in the Middle East, the second after Japan and South Korea, we can notice that the mood in the Arab world and the Islamic world was very much against this attack, and that's what makes this summit such a, remarkable in the short notice that most of the top leaders in the Islamic world, 54 nations, members of the organization, flew to Doha and show their solidarity to Qatar. And I think this is a message also goes to the United States and to the Israelis and to the West that there is no way of keep supporting Israel and continue this genocide in Palestine. Therefore, we see there could be some sort of changes, at least on the political front, in the way that Abraham Accord will be shelved for some time, because most of the Arab country now will not dare to go and declare that they are normalizing relation with a country which have no respect for any country or any borders. So therefore, this is a very dangerous step, and I think everybody got the message. Though I didn't see much of a unified action plan to be taking place, except for the rhetoric of the showing solidarities and even boycotting Israel or a call for an end to the war on Palestine is not enough. I think we are seeing more reaction from other Western capital toward cutting relation with Israel more than the Arab and the Islamic world.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking more news coming in from the Middle East. We're now learning that even as the Arab and Muslim leaders assembled and were expressing solidarity with Qatar, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Israel. He's met Netanyahu as well. Rubio has in fact given a strong backing for Israel's stance. Rubio is also set to visit Qatar after his visit to Israel concludes, where he will voice support for Qatar's sovereignty. There was a joint presser that was held between Rubio and Netanyahu. Rubio has stressed that the United States is going to encourage Qatar to play a constructive role in mediating the conflict in Gaza. Listen in.
And so we're going to continue to encourage Qatar to play a constructive role in that regard. We're focused because at the end of the day, no matter what has happened, these fundamentals still remain. There is still a Hamas, there is still 48 hostages, and there is still a war going on. And all of these things standing in the way of a better future for the people of Gaza and a peaceful end to what's happening now. So we're going to remain focused on what we can do next.
Dr. Wael Awad still with us on the broadcast, sir. We've heard what Marco Rubio has just said, and it's interesting because he's slated to head to Qatar next. We also heard what the Arab leaders had to say earlier. They had in fact urged the United States to use its ties with Israel as leverage and to exercise its duty as a strategic partner to the Gulf countries as well. What do you expect from Rubio's visit to Qatar?
Well, I think everybody knows that the current American administration, including naming Mr. Trump the president and Rubio, they are basically both are American stooge. They are unable to do anything. They will not be able dare to stop Netanyahu even from his attack on the Palestinian. In fact, if you can see, the visit to the Palestinian is just to endorse the annexation of the West Bank by the Israelis, where they will be partially be endorsing it or taking the part of the West Bank, which is supposed to be a part of the Palestinian state. But now they are giving them the blessing from the United States administration that they can take it, and there will be no outcry, neither in the Arab world nor in the Palestinian. So Israel continue its bombardment. Look at the intensified shooting and killing and destruction of hospitals, universities, schools, and everything in Gaza, and the amount of people, the influx of people are leaving their home. They don't know where to go. They make them go from south to the north, from north to the south, and then bombing them intentionally. Well, they are having nothing in their hands to defend themselves. So therefore, it's a clear indication that the United States have given the carte blanche to Prime Minister Netanyahu to continue his genocide. Because if you look at the amount of destruction and the intensification of the attack, it's a clear indication there is going to be an invasion of Gaza, and it's already been taking place, and there will be more massacre, more bloodshed, not only in Gaza, but also inside the West Bank. This is one of the issues. The second issue is when Rubio goes to Qatar, he just wanted to assure that the American is still a partner and protect Qatar. But the world is asking now if the American president extracted more than $4.5 trillion from the Arab capitals, from namely 3 Arab countries, Gulf country, and he is not able to protect them from the attack, and only pointing toward Iran. And we know that the danger is coming from Israel. I think the American credibility and accountability has been questioned and have been more isolated than Israel diplomatically, and international community is not happy with the current American administration doing all this in favor of Israel, not only globally, but even at the UN Security Council, refusing to allow any resolution against Israel to end this genocide. And that's where we can see, and I think the UN General Assembly have declared that more than 142 nations have voted in favor of two-state solution. America cannot stay silent, and the world should not stay silent to make sure that there are two-state solution will continue and a comprehensive peace can be achieved in the Middle East.
Sir, you've spoken about the UNGA resolution. I'll come to that in a bit. In the meantime, we're tracking some more developments coming from the Middle East. On his visit to Israel, Rubio has stated that the United States is backing Israel in its goal to eradicate Hamas. He has in fact emphasized that Washington will provide unwavering support to Israel in achieving its goal in Gaza. Take a look at what he said.
Clear on the ongoing issues in Gaza, and that is that every single hostage, both living and deceased, needs to be home immediately. Hamas can no longer continue to exist as an armed element that threatens the peace and security, not just of Israel, but of the world, and that the people of Gaza deserve a better future, one that cannot begin until Hamas is eliminated and until all of the hostages, both living and deceased, are home.
Additionally, US President Donald Trump has also warned Hamas over Israeli hostages. In a post on his social media platform, Truth Social, he has stated that he's read news reports that Hamas was going to move the hostages above ground and, quote, use them as human shields, unquote. He has warned Hamas to release all hostages immediately. Meanwhile, there is continued bombardment taking place in Gaza, even as Rubio is in Israel. Eyewitnesses have in fact stated that Israel has heavily bombarded Gaza City and that danger is increasing. The humanitarian situation on the ground is becoming more dire. Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Wael Awad. So we were discussing the UNGA resolution. You pointed out that there were 142 countries that had voted in favor of recognizing the state of Palestine, but the US once again stood behind Israel in lodging protests against this particular resolution. Indeed, and I wanted to ask you, does this UNGA resolution really hold weight, since we do know that it is the UN Security Council that has the final say in things that could really affect the situation on the ground itself, and the US consistently uses its veto power in defense of Israel?
Well, I think as long as the United States get the instruction from Tel Aviv, I don't see an independent American stand on this issue, and will continue the Palestinians to suffer. But I think the General Assembly voting, and this is a clear message to the world, there are more than 8 billion people in this 142 countries have voted in favor of a Palestinian state. You want to expect that the world should listen to 15 million Israelis who are claiming that they have been in that land for 2,500 years ago and has been taken from them. I don't see anybody can buy this argument anymore, because we are seeing a total destruction, a total human catastrophe happening in the region, and most of the Western capitals now erupted because they are noticing that the declared agenda of Israel and the objective are not the same that they are saying on the ground, because it's not Hamas. Hamas is just a pretext for the Israelis' genocide. It is not today that it happened on the 23rd of October and post 23rd of October 2023 that Israel has been doing this. Everybody knows. You read back history, and you know from 1948 when the division of Palestine took place, and 55% of the total of Palestine was given to minority Jews, while 45% were given to the Arab Palestinians. So therefore, you can imagine what did Britain have done to the mess in the ground in Palestine till they made sure that Israel come to existence, but not a Palestinian state. I think the world is being recognizing now there is no way of a durable peace in the Middle East unless and until they address the Palestinian issues, and without two-state solution, there will be no peace in the West Asia.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Meanwhile, viewers, more developments coming in. We're now learning that French President Emmanuel Macron has held a video call with leaders, including British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, in order to talk about the two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. Now, this video call comes ahead of a meeting of world leaders on the 22nd of September on the sidelines of the high-level United Nations General Assembly, where Britain, France, Canada, Australia and Belgium are expected to formally recognize a Palestinian state. The UNGA on Friday, remember, had overwhelmingly voted to endorse a declaration outlining tangible, time-bound and irreversible steps towards a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. Macron held another video conference with the leaders where discussions about the response to the Israeli strikes which hit the capital of Qatar were in fact discussed. We do know that France and Saudi Arabia will co-chair this meeting that will take place in New York on the 22nd of September. On that note, viewers, more developments coming in. We're now learning that US President Donald Trump has stated that the American military has struck a second Venezuelan vessel suspected of drug trafficking, killing 3 men in international waters. He has claimed that the boat was heading to the United States but offered no evidence. Trump warned of similar such operations which could also target cartels moving by land. Listen in.
Now, what does that mean? That means there's no drugs coming by sea, but they do come by land. And you know what? We're telling the cartels right now, we're going to be stopping them too. When they come by land, we're going to be stopping them the same way we stop the boats.
The announcement has come hours after Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accused Washington of aggression, stating that communication between the two governments have completely broken down. Take a look.
y así lo van a seguir buscando. En Panamá no es una tensión, es una agresión en toda la línea, es una agresión judicial cuando nos criminalizan, es una agresión política con sus declaraciones amenazantes diarias, es una agresión diplomática y es una agresión en camino de carácter militar. Y Venezuela está facultada por las leyes internacionales para hacerle frente integralmente a esta agresión. No es una tensión, es una agresión.
Maduro rejected the claims being peddled by the United States of America. He has stated that those claims and the U.S. had claimed that those killed were part of the Tren de Aragua gang, insisting that Venezuela has mobilized troops against narco trafficking. He has also lashed out at U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, calling him the Lord of Death and War. Meanwhile, this latest escalation highlights growing tensions as the Trump administration is bolstering its military presence in the Caribbean. We do know that they recently deployed F-35 fighters, warships and a nuclear-powered submarine in the region as well. With us on the broadcast is Ms. Shruti Dasgupta, International Affairs expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you, ma'am, for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. It seems that the situation between Venezuela and the United States of America, the tensions that have been simmering, they're continuing to escalate. This is the second such attack on a Venezuelan vessel in recent times. We've seen increased militarization as well in the Caribbean, and it's interesting because there was a UN report that had come out a while back highlighting that narco trafficking, drug trafficking usually takes place through the Pacific. A bulk of that takes place through the Pacific and not the Atlantic. So what is the objective of the United States in bolstering its presence in the Atlantic near Venezuela's coast?
Greetings, Pia. Thank you so much for inviting me. You've hit the nail on the head with your question that the UN report clearly states that Venezuela only, if it facilitates, would be a small drop in compared to the mass of drugs being transshipped everywhere. The major nations responsible for such a crime are Colombia, Peru, and I believe Bolivia. But Venezuela may be facilitating transportation, but only about 270 tons compared to more than 30,000 tons that are actually transshipped. 3,000 tons that are actually transshipped throughout the world. So Trump's actions in the name of drugs on Venezuela seems to be a front. Again, the Pacific route is the route which the UN Drug and Control Crime branch has pointed out. So why the presence in the Atlantic Ocean and why specifically against Venezuela? For me, the answer lies in the fact that Venezuela is the largest known oil reserves, which surpasses even Saudi Arabia. And despite the Trump administration coming to an agreement with the Maduro administration of resupplying the Venezuelan oil into the market via Chevron, it seems that what they've got is something, an eye on a bigger deal. They want something more out of Venezuela. They probably want control as much as they can of those particular resources. And this is a way of intimidating Venezuela. Does US have a drug problem? Yes. Does all of it come through Venezuela? No. Does it go through land? Yes. Which are the nations responsible for it? Canada and Mexico are primary borders where these kind of activities percolate through borders. So are they acting against Canada and Mexico on drugs? No. On other issues, yes, but not drugs. And specifically, if these nations sign unequal trade deals or agree to unequal tariffs, the US administration is very happy to work with them, allowing the drugs to flow through along with the trade. So basically, drugs is just a smokescreen to kind of influence Venezuela, who is having its own democratic problems. We all know the democracy in Venezuela is not as it should be. So this is a pressure tactic, probably a regime change, probably a minor escalation of sorts to justify Trump's action in trying to control the largest oil reserves of the world.
And ma'am, in your assessment, where do you think this will head next?
Well, we've already mentioned a large amount of deployment happening in the sea. So unless they actually want to physically intimidate Venezuela with all their weapons, etc., I don't see any other reason to do so. This is not about pirates. This is not about drugs. This is about intimidation. This is a show of power, flexing of muscles. And this is very, very aptly done by the Trump administration in the Atlantic Sea against Venezuela and any other nation in that region that is probably planning to go against what the Trump regime wants. So for that matter, we can look at Brazil per se, who is not completely in consonance with what Trump regime wants it to say. So when you have this kind of posturing, it doesn't just intimidate one person, but the entire continent. So this is power through the barrel of the gun, or at least in this case, through its naval show of power. And for this, I will see an escalation, probably in terms of direct attack towards ground forces, in towards the Southern American nations, stating the name of drugs. So I see an escalation rather than de-escalation in the coming future.
All right, ma'am. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World today. Meanwhile, viewers, shifting focus to more updates coming in, we're now learning that US and Chinese officials have stated that they've reached a framework agreement to shift TikTok to US-controlled ownership. This deal is expected to be confirmed in a call between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has stated that the 17 September divestiture deadline prompted Beijing to move forward, adding that a 90-day extension could be granted to finalize terms. He has stressed that the deal would protect US national security while preserving cultural elements important to China. China's trade representative Li Chenggang has confirmed that both sides had reached a basic framework consensus, calling the outcome mutually beneficial. Listen in.
本次会谈，双方围绕 TikTok 及中方有关关切进行了坦诚深入的交流，就以合作方式妥善解决 TikTok 相关问题，减少投资障碍，促进有关经贸合作等，达成了基本框架共识。
US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer has stated that Washington has remained open to extending the current 90-day pause on tariffs, calling the Madrid talks candid and constructive. Listen in to what he had to say.
To be able to come, sit down, quickly identify the issues, narrow them down to a very granular spot, and be able to come to a conclusion subject to the leader's approval. I mean, that is remarkable. I mean, US-China negotiations tend to go on for months and years without results. But I have to say, too, that President Trump played a role in this. We had a call with him last night. We had specific guidance from him. We shared it with our Chinese counterparts. And without his leadership and the leverage he provides, we would not have been able to conclude the deal today.
The Madrid meeting, which was held in Palacio de Santa Cruz, was the fourth round of negotiations between US and China in the last 4 months. Now, the deal, if finalized, will require congressional approval under the 2024 law mandating TikTok's divestiture over national security concerns in the United States of America. With us on the broadcast is Andrew K.P. Leung. He's a strategist focusing on the economy and on geopolitics as far as China is concerned. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. What are, in your assessment, the implications of this consensus that has been reached as far as the ownership of TikTok is concerned?
I think the implications are that both sides are putting their cards on the table. As far as America is concerned, I mean, the mantra is that this TikTok represents some sort of a national security as far as data as security is concerned, because the social media platform has become very popular amongst young people. A lot of them from supporters, and in fact, that these supporters play a role in Trump winning back the White House. And of course, that the Trump administration is using the reason of national security and data security to want to seize control of the TikTok platform in the United States. And even its original algorithm, which drives the whole TikTok business, and not only in the United States, but the rest of the world, because the platform has been proven also extremely popular among the young people across the globe. There is no way that Beijing and the Chinese company, ByteDance, would agree to relinquish the intellectual property over their algorithms to the United States. And hence, this is a hard-won framework agreement. But the details are yet to be announced. I think it's likely that the data security will be ring-fenced by the United States so as to satisfy the security concerns advanced by the American side. But on the other hand, preserving some sort of a stake as far as the Chinese company is concerned. But this is also a part of the milestone towards a greater understanding on other trade issues, the semiconductor stranglehold on China, and other tariff restrictions, as well as the targeting of sanctions of a number of Chinese companies only recently, even days ago. So this does not all go well to a kind of equal footing between the two countries. But at least the two sides have come to some sort of initial agreement, and Trump is very eager to be able to speak to President Xi later this week, probably on Friday. And if that happens, it also paves the way for the two leaders possibly to meet one another, each other, personally, perhaps at the margin of the Asian Pacific meeting later on the year. And it also paves the way for some sort of a normalization of a relationship between these two rival superpowers.
Indeed, and you've spoken about the rivalry that exists. We do know, as you pointed out, that TikTok is quite popular in the United States of America. There are an estimated 170 million users. So do you think China would have considered the fact that this market is absolutely gigantic? And how do you think this will impact the US-China tech rivalry in the future?
Well, even though there's 170 million users of TikTok, there are also quite a large number outside China using TikTok in Europe and other countries in Latin America, in Asia, and also the TikTok equivalent, the Douyin in China, owned by the same company, ByteDance, is even larger. And then because of the fear of the TikTok users in the United States, the TikTok would be shut down one day. So a lot of the American young people, before this current agreement, framework agreement, had already migrated or locked into the China version on the Chinese mainland, which is called Douyin. Even though the Chinese platform doesn't use English, but there is a lock-in there to enable the English speakers to interact directly with their Chinese counterparts on the mainland, and using, and then this formed a bridge never before happened of enabling the American young people to understand what's going on with their counterparts on the mainland. That's helped to broker a greater understanding between the people-to-people understanding, at least amongst young people. So it's a very healthy development, and I think this development is not likely to be seized or disrupted because of this framework agreement. I think that there's a momentum that both countries are trying to normalize relationship in the sense that there is all a tremendous competition and rivalry, but also creating an area of cooperation and greater mutual understanding to avoid the relationship descending into war.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for sharing your perspective today on NewsX World. Meanwhile, viewers, we're shifting our focus back to the Middle East. Some fresh reports are coming in regarding an attack on a media center in Sana'a by Israeli forces. We're now learning, as per the Houthis' Ministry of Health, that attacks have been carried out in Sana'a and Al-Jawaf, in which at least 35 people have lost their lives, those which include journalists and other civilians as well. Mohammed al-Bashar, a Yemeni analyst, has stated that the strikes were carried out when the staff of the Houthi-controlled newspaper were printing their papers. He has also stated that it was a weekly publication and thus the staff were gathered at the publishing house to prepare for distribution, significantly increasing the number of people present in the compound. Now, meanwhile, the Israeli military has claimed to have struck the Houthi Public Relations Department in response to recent attacks by the Houthis on Israel. All right, viewers, due to paucity of time, that's all we have for this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned.